If and when humans begin living on the moon long term, it is going to be an unbelievable challenge, probably rivaling or possibly exceeding the challenge faced by researchers who decide to brave the long winter at McMurdo Station in Antarctica. We're talking about an environment that is being bombarded constantly with radiation, an outside environment that, of course, is in vacuum and constantly threatening to kill you if there is the slightest breach in your habitat. And of course, also the extreme isolation, being located not just on a remote part of the globe, but hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from home. This is a challenge that many researchers, many engineers, and many architects have sought to face, including those who created this particular animation advocating a base at the rim of Shackleton Crater, where, of course, we think most of the lunar ice is located. This is going to be a hotly contested region, by the way, especially if the People's Republic of China happens to arrive there first, but the ones who succeed are going to be the ones who can stay at this location for the long term. As you can see, this is an inflatable solution packaged in a single mission, but this solution includes a number of problems. For one thing, it doesn't appear to be very well protected against micrometeoroids. Also, the radiation shielding might be a little questionable as well. And this is a problem faced with a variety of different lunar-based concepts. You have to travel light. The more equipment, the more raw materials you bring from Earth, the more the whole thing is going to cost. However, if you bring less, then your base may not be resilient enough to survive the hostile environment on the moon, or it may not be big enough to provide a comfortable environment for astronauts that are going to be struggling with the serious psychiatric issues of being isolated in such a hostile and lonely place. What is the best compromise solution? Well, this is Project Haven, a very interesting lunar-based concept that has, in my opinion, the best of both worlds. It utilizes a lot of cutting-edge technology combined with local resources, in situ resource utilization as it is called, on top of some of the moon's natural protective features in order to create large living spaces for astronauts that are really going to need them as the months drag by on the moon. It is, in my opinion, the ultimate lunar base. Good afternoon, space enthusiasts, and welcome to another episode of The Angry Astronaut. Today we are going back to the moon. Well, not literally, but we are going to be talking about moon bases, a topic that I have brought up a number of times on this channel. But this time we are going to investigate some of the drawbacks, some of the reasons that some of the solutions that have been presented to NASA in regards to establishing a long-term presence on the moon may not be all that ideal. There have been things about some of these proposals that sound very intriguing in regards to 3D printing and other innovations to utilize in situ resources in order to build a moon base, so you don't have to bring tons and tons of building materials, equipment, supplies, etc. from Earth, because obviously the more mass you bring to the moon, the more expensive the mission becomes, and therefore the less likely it is that the mission is going to be approved, more likely it is that it's going to get canceled eventually. So the best thing to do is to take advantage of some of the natural features of the moon, some of the natural places on the moon where establishing a good long-term presence might be a little bit more viable, but also find a way to do it whereby the astronauts that are going to be stuck on this lifeless rock for months and months, don't suffer psychologically. They're going to suffer in so many other ways, in ways that even astronauts on Mars are not going to suffer. They're going to be very isolated from Earth, just like Mars, but in addition to that, they're going to be subjected to more radiation than people on the surface of Mars. The Martian atmosphere, thin as it is, provides a considerable amount of protection. They're also going to suffer from a lower gravitational force than Martian colonists might suffer. 1/6 gravity instead of 1/3, which is doubtlessly going to have a more significant effect on the human body. So all of that being said, building a base where humans can actually stay for months or perhaps even years at a time is a significant challenge. And yet there is a really intriguing solution. It's called Haven, and in my opinion, it is the ultimate lunar base. So for those of you who have been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I've talked about 3D printing on the moon and Mars quite a number of times in my videos. However, 3D printing came out about 10 years ago and was supposed to revolutionize construction, and yet it hasn't. And the reason for that is different environmental conditions can cause significant problems to the process. Really, the only places where any of this printing solution has proven effective is inside the laboratory under very controlled conditions or in environments that NASA can strictly control. If things get any more complicated than that, printing on the moon may prove to be extremely challenging. Also, you have the extreme variations in temperature on the moon, which could cause cracks in the concrete, and also varied quality in the lunar regolith, which could result in inferior concrete. And also, the 3D printing process requires a considerable amount of energy, and energy is going to come at a premium on the moon. Even if you have small-scale nuclear reactors, a lot of that power is going to be dedicated towards life support, especially at nighttime. So if you're having to dedicate enormous amounts of energy just to build your habitat, that's going to slow down the growth of your colony. So what is the solution? If you can't 3D print material on the moon, then where are you going to get all of those materials? Well, interestingly enough, the recent Chandrayaan-3 mission to the moon discovered that just a few centimeters of regolith provides not only protection from radiation, but also a lot of temperature control. Temperatures become a lot more moderate just a short distance beneath the lunar surface, and that could make an enormous amount of difference, meaning that if you just bury your habitat or put it inside a lava tube and then cover the top portion with just a layer of regolith that doesn't have to be 3D printed, just pile it on top of the base, it accomplishes the same thing. So let's go ahead and talk about Haven in great detail, and I'm going to geek out on this with a lot of diagrams because it's really incredible. Haven is a lunar port and base, a design for a lunar arrival port with a special focus on long-term habitat. It is located on a ridge between Shackleton and the Deglerach craters at the lunar South Pole. The larger Haven compound includes a launch and landing pad, energy and resource facilities, a storage hangar for lunar lander components, and a long-term habitat which is designed for versatile, fast-changing crew occupations. A permanent crew of 4 astronauts lives at Haven to coordinate the arrival procedures, run the habitat, and work on research and exploration projects. This permanent crew stays for the maximum duration of a lunar mission, 180 days. In addition, Haven hosts changing guest crews. These are the astronauts that arrive at the lunar port. After arriving on the moon, they will need to acclimatize to lunar gravity and learn to conduct procedures in 1/6 gravity. This acclimatization and training phase lasts for 5 to 10 days, during which the guest crews stay at the Haven habitat and get instructed by the permanent crew. And by the way, in case you're noticing that, hey, all this stuff is 3D printed, it's the model that's 3D printed, not the actual base concept. The guest crews then move on to their respective own long-term outposts or mission headquarters, housing 2 different crews, one permanent working crew and one fast-changing short-time guest crew, poses a number of significant challenges to privacy and workflow procedures. However, at the same time, it offers the possible benefits of a more diverse circle of social interaction and a larger community, which is often lacking on extraterrestrial outpost concepts. The architectural setup of Haven therefore answers to the privacy challenge of these 2 subcrews while still enabling communications and personal exchange. The design focuses on flexibility and multiplexing, as well as finding a balance between private and shared areas by offering varieties from completely private over semi-private to community space. The habitat itself consists of a rigid central component and an inflatable module in the shape of a torus with oblate sides. The inflatable multi-layer shell is folded around the riding part during launch and landing using a system of external folding, which allows the interior of the rigid module to be used for in-flight storage. In its packaged state, the whole module, as well as a lander and additional cargo, fits into an SLS Block 1B launcher and could definitely fit inside Starship. With 587 cubic meters of habitable volume, the inflatable provides a crucial extension to the 80 cubic meter of the rigid module. In its packaged state, the whole habitat takes up a volume of 187 cubic meters, meaning that you could pack 5 of these inside the fairing of Starship, giving a total habitat space of 3,000 cubic meters, or triple the size of Starship's fairing. So the construction of the Haven habitat relies on a multi-stage process, starting with a pre-staging phase during which the necessary support equipment and habitat modules are placed on the moon. The site on the ridge between Shackleton and de Gerlache craters is prepared and excavated using a hybrid process of pneumatic and percussive digging. Subsequently, the package module, as well as any support modules such as 2 airlocks and the greenhouse, are placed and deployed. Several further robotic construction steps ensure a safe connection of the modules and internal structure, as well as the installation of the radiation shielding. The final construction phase, including the interior outfitting, is done by a first human crew. Haven's radiation and micrometeoroid shielding, which is provided by in situ regolith piled on top of the structure, as well as discarded propulsion tanks of the descent stages of the lunar landers filled up with lunar regolith. I love that idea. Make use of the discarded tanks and the regolith to make really, really good radiation shielding. Instead of adding these empty tanks to the lunar junkyard, they are removed from the lander and filled with regolith during the pneumatic excavation process. This offers several remarkable benefits, namely an immediate safe disposal of the excavated material during the pneumatic process and great time efficiency, as this can run simultaneously with the excavation stage. Furthermore, this approach prevents the need to launch additional machinery to create the regolith shielding to the moon and provides the opportunity to reuse the discarded lander components. The regolith-filled tanks are placed around the habitat to serve as horizontal shielding, while additional regolith-filled bags cover the habitat's top. The habitat itself is spread over 2 levels, a surface and subsurface level, which are connected over a lunar staircase in the rigid central module. On the surface level, the entrance to the habitat lies via 2 airlocks. A greenhouse module supports the crew's nutritional diet. The surface level is where the working areas as well as the wardroom and galley are set. It's where the astronauts spend most of the day. The central rigid part serves as the connection between the working areas as well as a green gallery. Here, the astronauts can enjoy a breather in between work by watching the stars through a cupola window above or interacting with the plants on the green wall. The communications and control center, doubling as research and workspace, is where the permanent crew runs the lunar port and conducts their research. The whole area, as well as the airlock it leads to, are only accessible to the permanent crew and can be closed off from the rest of the habitat. A separate training area area is where the guest crew is instructed. It's a very flexible space that can be divided into smaller units. It also serves as the guest crew's work area if needed, and thus the accessibility and privacy levels can change depending on the need. A small communications chamber with insulation blankets allows private conversations with Earth. The large wardroom and galley has no access limitations and encourages both crews to interact during meal times. One level below lies the subsurface level. As this is the best shielded part of the habitat, it is also where the crew quarters are located. The respective quarters of the guest crew and permanent crew are separated spatially. They are located on opposite sides of the habitat. The hygiene and laundry units on one side and the workout area on the other side further provide spatial and visual separation. In the middle, however, a central crew lounge connects the quarters. If desired, all quarters can be opened towards the lounge or shielded off with sliding walls. There's so many things about this design that is flexible and modular. It can be changed. The walls can be moved. The entire internal structure redesigned if needed. Very, very customizable, and I like that, and I think moon crews would like that as well. The crews are encouraged to spend their leisure time together in this large shared area. However, each sub-crew also has a small space on their side of the habitat to spend private time amongst each other. The subsurface level furthermore contains a small sick bay with medical lab, which could offer additional sleeping space in case of a larger crew handover. The workout area is designed with flexibility in mind. Sliding walls let the crew choose between several small or one large workout area and offer various workout options. The crew quarters themselves vary in size between the permanent and guest crew, as you may have already noticed. While the crew pods are smaller than the quarters of the permanent crew, they still aim to provide maximum privacy and livability during their short stay. The pods are only 150 centimeters high and stacked on top of each other. The lunar gravity makes the upper pod easily accessible. They're only 4.5 cubic meters, but they offer some storage possibility for items needed during a short duration stay. Light and ventilation can be adjusted individually. The entry hatches are made from tonable glass to let the astronaut decide on the amount of interaction or privacy that they want. In comparison, the 9.8 cubic meter permanent crew quarters are, of course, much larger. They allow the inhabitants to stand and move in an upright position, offer more storage for long-term items, and more possibilities to individualize their space. The design philosophy was to create a flexible room schedule. The permanent crew's quarters can be used as a fully private area during the night and as a small private work area during the day. Simple pull-out profiles in the bed structure allow a quick adaptation of the room for an intimate gathering of two crew members. The bed can be extended to host two people in case two crew members want to share a quarter. Overall, the design of Haven focuses on creating possibilities and flexibility to offer the astronauts their choice to create their own living structure and choose their own levels of privacy and interaction with each other. There are so many amazing details to this base, far more than I could possibly share in a video like this, but I'm going to go ahead and cover a few more important features. First of all, the airlocks. Haven is outfitted with two egress-ingress airlocks. Very good idea for backup purposes in case there's a disaster with one of those airlocks. Both provide 4 suit ports each, as well as a docking opportunity for an SPR with another 2 suit ports. In other words, a rover of some kind. The airlocks also include a glove box system with the possibility to blow out dust and bring samples inside or work on them directly in the glove box. An extensible telescopic robotic arm supports the work directly outside the habitat. Apart from plenty of internal storage space and charging stations, internal EVA lockers hold all the necessary equipment for a successful EVA. Now let's check out a cutaway of the main habitat unit. You have the stargazing window up top, always important to be able to see to the outside so it doesn't feel so much like a mining colony. Also, a semi-private niche for communications, that's number 2. Number 3, a private communications area. Number 4, the green gallery. This is so important. The green gallery is located in the central hub of the base. You can't pass from the subsurface section of the base to the surface section of the base without going through this gallery, meaning that you have constant exposure to green plants. That is so important for humans. Such a fantastic feature of this base. If you want a little piece of home, you don't have to go to the greenhouse, although the greenhouse is a great feature as well. An inflatable structure that is connected to the main habitat with another airlock. This allows the closing off of the greenhouse to keep the atmospheric conditions ideal for farming purposes. The greenhouse is not meant for the astronauts to interact with the plants or to use as a means for improving habitability. Its sole purpose is to grow enough fresh produce to sustain the crew. Therefore, the conditions in the greenhouse are precisely monitored and all processes are automated. Manual controls allow the crew to access and maintain the systems. And by the way, feature 1 is automated irrigation and harvesting, number 2 is manual controls, and number 3, a vertical hydroponic farm. But for those of you who want to look at this base in even greater detail, well, the entire design is 187 pages long. I have it linked in the description, and let me tell you something, I am super impressed with all the work that the designers put into this, the ultimate moon base. So very intriguing. Once again, I'm not saying that other moon base concepts are invalid or inferior in any way. It's just that this is a very interesting idea. I never liked the idea of living inside of lava tubes because it would be too similar to living inside of a mine, and miners who spend considerable amounts of time underground, there's well-documented psychiatric consequences to that kind of living, especially long-term. But this is a unique solution, a solution that brings lots of things to the table. Protection from radiation, but also a more comfortable environment suitable to long-term living. There are so many things that moon colonists or those who spend a lot of time on the moon are going to be giving up. They're not going to see an ocean. They're not going to obviously have an opportunity to swim, probably. I mean, perhaps a swimming pool might get built on the moon at some point in the future, but given the fact that there isn't a lot of water up there, I kind of doubt it. There's going to be many things about the Earth that you simply cannot bring to the moon. So the more creature comforts you can build into your base in conjunction with practical features, I think that that is the best compromise for long-term living on the moon. But what do you think? I'd like to see your comments on the matter. And in addition to that, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. And also, please consider supporting this channel on Patreon and also on Cash App. I am considering going to this 9th flight of Starship. Assuming that it actually happens on the 21st or 22nd, it will involve me staying a little bit longer in the United States than I planned to. There is somebody who's generously offering to give me Marriott points, so at least I don't have to pay for the hotel, meaning that all I have to do is pay for plane tickets and perhaps a couple days of rental car. If that's something you'd like to contribute to, all the details are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and as always, stay angry about space.